There is plenty of transfer portal news to go around when it comes to the ACC. So we're going to touch base on that. But we're also going to get you excited about some men's hoops this weekend. A slate full of games for Saturday. The best betting action you could have. Louisville and Florida State. That's the one where you're probably going to win the most money. Let's talk about it with Drizzy Drake on today's show.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. Welcome to today's edition of Locked On ACC. Super excited to have Drizzy Drake of Locked On Seminoles back in the building once again to talk over some ACC sports. You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so it goes down there. Super excited to have a good conversation around not only transfer portal news and some superlatives, but also men's hoops, because there are a lot of good games and maybe some best of the worst teams here in our conference going down. Maybe you win a little money when it's all said and done. Drizzy Drake, how we feeling? Happy Friday.
Oh, happy Friday. Can't wait to tomorrow, turn on the TV, sit down, relax after, I've been traveling a lot the past few weeks and just watch FSU take on Louisville, which is basically going to be a battle of please don't embarrass me in front of the host.
Okay, like it's one of those 0-8, 1-9 teams that's just terrible, but we'll talk about that here in just a bit. What we do want to jump into is a lot of transfer portal news out of ACC football yet again. We know the guys are going left and right, but one of the things that has started to glaringly stick out is how many people from certain position groups are leaving, and one of the most notable would be North Carolina, and literally almost all of their DBs, defensive backs, decided that they're going to take their talents elsewhere. After 4 losing games that were just head scratching, a lot of people are saying, yo, what is going on in Chapel Hill?
I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, we always discuss how UNC's defense has kind of been basically a bugaboo for them. It's always the offense need to kind of carry the load kind of for them moving forward. But then you see the defensive backroom with not only Tony Grimes, but also Storm Duck leaving. I mean, Storm Duck's been there for what? I think this is his 4th year now at this point. And it's interesting to me because at FSU, we kind of have not a similar problem with players departing, but when you see a defensive back start the first year, they come in, really well talented. You can tell they were been developed well. But then after year 2 and year 3, you kind of have to sit there and wonder, are they still the same player in the first year? And somewhat, you kind of, when you look at the UH secondary, that's kind of a question that actually you can kind of raise a little bit. And then also you see the constant turnover at the DC spot with Jay Bateman as well as Gene Chizik. Quite frankly, you just kind of have to wonder, how much longer is Mac Brown going to be there?
Hello, somebody. Well, I don't know if it's like he's going to need to retire and find himself out the door. I don't know if it's a top-heavy problem. I don't know if it's a coordinated problem, but it just feels like there's an issue. There's a lot of elephants in the room. I saw a tweet from Jabari Price, who's a former, defensive back, and he essentially was just like, "Oh, well, guys aren't really loving the team, and you basically are just giving up. Like, where y'all finna go? All these things." And I'm like, are we watching the same defense from UNC? I was like, as much as these guys have, improved lack of improvement, some of that stuff is just them being set up to fail. And that starts with leadership. And so I'm not, as much as I want to be like, oh, they, missed tackle, cool. But when I hear that you lost 4 games to backup quarterbacks and you guys didn't prepare for them, I'm starting to think it comes from top down.
Ma'am, I am always yelling at our defensive staff, whether it be Marcus Woodson, defensive backs coach I was referring to earlier, or Adam Fuller, because both of them, one does corners and the other does safeties. And then we see with Andy Richardson, not once, but twice, throw it to Wes Welker Jr., Ricky Pearsall for Florida on 2 consecutive 45-yard and 53-yard bombs. So You're right. It always comes down from the top how the coaches are prepping the kids, because folks, primarily, that is their job, is to help prep them and coach them and scheme them up and put them in positions to succeed. So that definitely is a question to be raised over in Chapel Hill.
1,000%. A lot more transfer portal news. We talked about a lot of that on yesterday's show. If you have not had a chance to listen, please go back. We talked about Phil Dracovic going to Pittsburgh. We talked about the fact that a lot of guys from Virginia Tech are getting swamped, even Clemson trying to find new homes and all the things. But we do have a little bright spots. We did superlatives with Alex Dono, but I would love to do it with Drizzy Drake as well, because I feel like there might be some different answers and some more just as or more entertaining answers with this bad boy. So Drake, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, cool. So, best team out of the ACC this season, that award would go to who?
So I know everyone on here expects me not to be the homer and pick Clemson, but I'm not going to do that. The best team at the end of the season is Florida State, and let me tell you
Okay,
why.
please.
9-3 team ends the
Mhm.
season on a high note. The 3-game losing streak that we did suffer, we were missing a Robert Scott, our left tackle. Fabian Lovell was out for a majority of that time as well. And you see, heading into that 5-game stretch, Kenton is right. We faced off against Georgia Tech team, no starting quarterback, backup. Miami didn't have that. Put the backup in after the second quarter. Same thing as well. I think with Syracuse. Actually, no, Syracuse Garrett played. Doesn't change the fact you beat them by scoring over 40 plus points to each one of those games and holding Miami and Syracuse to a field goal each.
Mhm.
So that's a defense that was top 15 down the stretch. And with Clemson, I mean, we saw DJU for the majority of the time the year there, and we saw him struggle against South Carolina. We saw him struggle against Notre Dame. If Kate Klubnik had played those last 4 games, it'd be a different story. I'd be proclaiming that Clemson's the best team. With Kate
Mhm.
Klubnik also, though, I'm going to hold back on thinking how good this kid's going to be because, like we were just saying, he tore up a UNC defense that we've been reviling all season long. So to
Mhm.
me, Florida State is the best team heading into next season. It's the best team at the end of this year because if you play the game once more again at the way we're playing, I would have us winning by 7 to 10 points.
I agree. I think Florida State just, caught fire at the tail end, but just didn't have, the right pieces in the puzzle to get it together from a having to beat Clemson standpoint. Other than that, though, I would definitely want that NC State game back. But
We all
learning
do. We
lessons
all do. We all do. Trust me.
and Jordan Travis returning, I can argue that Florida State might be the best team in the ACC going into next season.
I mean, listen, not only is Jordan Travis coming back, Tatum Bethune, the transfer from UCF, the linebacker who was one of our best players in defense, coming back. Trey Benson officially announced late last night that he will be coming back as well. He was almost 1,000-yard rusher after Trayshawn Ward went down. And there's been some rumblings that maybe your boy, Fabian Lovett, actually might be coming back too for one last go-around. He's the heart and soul of that defense. And also Jared Verse might come back. And if he comes back, the band's
Danger.
back together. You are basically, you're going to be running that back. So
Ooh, love to see it. All right, who would you consider the worst team of the ACC this season?
I'm not doing Miami. I know everyone wants me to do Miami, but I have a different way to kind of put them in the spot. And to me,
Okay.
it's going to be Boston College.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I had really high expectations for Jeff Hafley and the boys. I thought Jeff Hafley was one of the better hires 2 years ago. Now he's making me look like a damn fool. When you have basically the approach you had for the transfer portal, where you don't want to bring in kids, and then, oh, look, one offensive lineman goes down. Oh, no, a second offensive lineman goes down. Oh, no, a third one. And you see the pattern keep repeating, and then you have walk-ons playing offensive line where I might get my cleats out the closet and probably line up against these boys real quick to see what's going to happen. But I'm just joking, folks.
Yeah.
The walk-ons would still probably own me. But overall, when you see the season that they had, and there's the utter decline of Phil Dracovic and not putting in position to succeed, and Zay Flowers, somehow Zay Flowers still being Zay Flowers, just shows how talented the kid is. I had expectations for this team to probably win 7 to 8 games at BC. And the way they basically kind of stumbled, almost losing to Maine, losing to UConn, we made money on that, folks, by the way, so you're welcome. Overall, to me, with this team, it's got to be Boston College. Because Virginia Tech
Yeah.
was close, but I think Boston College kind of deserves a little more because Virginia Tech is in year 1. Jeff Hafley's in year 3.
That is 100% fair. And I also think that, like, I too was ready for this to be the year of like no excuses for Halfley, because you had the COVID situation, you had, try and learn things and blah, blah, blah. They'll get hurt the year before. And now it's kind of like, all right, Phil's back, Zay's back, defense has improved, DeBerry is out there. I think it's going to be a year. And so I don't know. I've heard from, birdies on the street that it's an administrative thing as to why the transfer portal is not really being utilized, but what you gonna do? Hopefully this was the year to see, like, hey guys, much as you don't want to use the transfer portal, unless you figure it out, we're gonna stink again. So
I mean, yeah, it's probably an academics thing too, because I mean that's definitely a hindrance there. As I know with Colorado, they had that before, and then when Deion showed up, they kind of like laxed that a little bit. That's also why David Shaw left Stanford. It's really hard to bring kids into Stanford academically. Same thing with Wake Forest, and also I know they have Blake James as AD. Alex Down talked about a little bit yesterday. I can tell you from friends and family, they're very happy to see Blake James gone, just to put the way that he conducts business around here.
1,000%. I got a question for you, but I do want to ask everyone who is getting ready for bowl season, and especially these basketball games that we're talking about just a bit, what they're putting their money on. Hit us up on YouTube or the Twitter Spaces. You can follow us at Locked On ACC. But if you want to get in your bets, make sure you hit up betonline.net, your number one source for all your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Like we said, we have some really good games happening on the men's front. And listen, ladies are always holding it down over the weekend. So make sure you get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more, because BetOnline is where the game starts. Rocking and rolling with Drizzy Drake of Locked On Seminoles podcast. And my question for you, the big news out of last weekend was not only that DJ lost his job, but Deion Sanders is going to Colorado. And as someone who covers Florida State, was there a lot of people talking about like, oh my God, like this is the next step for him to be a Power 5 coach. Eventually he'll come back to Tallahassee. Like, how did that go down?
He's not coming to Tallahassee. Well, here's the thing. If he went so I think the bar in Colorado is so much lower because they don't have the same researchers as the rest of the Pac-12 with Power 5. If Deion wins, if Deion consecutively goes to bowl games there, I think that's already a success. I think you actually have to look at him. If he's able to convince and recruit kids to come to Colorado and basically, it'll be a little bit easier with USC and UCLA leaving to the Big Ten. I think not this season, but the following year. I do think it's stepping stone for him to get a major Power 5 job. If Norvell is able to continue with what we're doing right now, I don't see him coming here. But if he's not, I think you have to legitimately take a look at him, because he's basically, if you make Colorado into somewhat of a winner, that's an achievement in and of itself. So
1,000%. Do you feel like this is home for Norvell? Like he would not leave if they continue having this success?
I think that's the case, but I think he needs to continue kind of winning with this, because if we go to 9 and then say next season we win 8, that I think will be a step back in the wrong direction, because if you look at our schedule overall for next season, we have like a Virginia Tech, we have a Pitt. I know Duke, you're a big fan of, but I think next year it's going to be against us. It's going to be at home, so it'll be a little easier for us. The path is easily there to not only win 10 games, but also to win the conference easily, especially with the amount of players that are not only coming back, but also the amount of money that's being invested to bring these players back. We have a new collective called The Battle's End, which is focused primarily on player retention. If you bring all these kids back, all these weapons back, and you don't win 10 games, a lot of that goodwill is going to be gone. But I definitely think that if he consistently wins here, he's definitely could be kind of home for him, because he has that old school kind of work hard, play hard kind of mentality. Even though apparently Michael Pittman says he listens to the NBA Youngboy, which I thought was the funniest thing ever.
Mike Norvell is a very interesting character to me, but Florida State in the landscape, I do agree. I think there's a lot of positive things happening, and Deion certainly has found his home in Colorado. Maybe one day the stars will align, but until then, we'll definitely keep rolling on the Norvell train, unless he wants to go somewhere else. I don't know if there's a more sexy, football job that Norvell would even be open for, but things that I like to put out there. I do want to keep rolling through my superlatives, though. We talked about best team, worst team, most improved team. Who would you say?
I think the most improved team has got to be your squad, Duke.
The fact that you said that, and I had to be like, which one? I had to think about it for a second. I was like, listen, I know he's not talking about North Carolina, but
I know. I ain't talking about North Carolina. I think Duke is probably the one you have to go with the most here. FSU also is up there, but I will say for Duke, I would love to say FSU, but Duke was predicted to only win 2.5 games at the season per BetOnline, per all the betting websites that aren't affiliated with us. They won 8. That's almost quadruple the amount of games they've won.
So I've heard that Mike Elko won too fast. Like he did too much too soon, and he won with cut-close guys. And so now the pressure is going to be on him to recruit well and keep this, new standard that he set for himself up.
Oh, so he has basically the Dan Mullen problem, where Dan Mullen for the first 2 seasons was winning with a bunch of Jim McElwain guys. And then also you hear you go into year 3 or 4. Oh no, I don't have a generational talent like Kyle Pitts tight end. Oh no, I don't have Kadarius Toney, like a speed demon on the outside. I don't have Kyle Trask. Oh, that sounds very familiar. But no, that is kind of a problem. He does need to rectify that with the recruiting or also with the portal. I mean, we saw basically, I didn't see many kids actually transfer into Duke from last season. I know they did lose Jake Bobo to UCLA, who at UCLA, he's had a really, really damn good season. That kid is probably definitely going to be going probably the later rounds to the NFL. But to me, winning too fast, that definitely is a problem, especially if you didn't do it with your own guys, because that could be kind of a fool's gold in some eyes. But it's more of a wait and see. We got to wait till year 3 or year 4, in my personal opinion, to kind of give a true perspective on how Michael Elko's been doing.
1,000% agree. And I think that ultimately, like, Duke just is trying to figure out how to be in the middle of the pack next season. I think a lot of what not having Atlantic and coastal divisions is going to really expose a lot of teams and a lot of coaches and all the things, because like it's one thing when you're dominating your division and it's like the best of the worst. It's a whole other thing when you're in the middle of the pack of the whole grand scheme. So
yeah, I can't wait to beat up on them also next year. I'm not even front.
Lord help us. All right, biggest surprise of the season for ACC football. Who do you have?
So this I'm going to steal from Alex Donald because I think it's the only team that we need to talk about here, and that's the Miami Hurricanes. But I'm not talking about the player. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the coaching staff. And solamente yo quería hablar con mi amigo Mario Manuel Cristobal. Brother, ¿qué pasó? What happened this year? I really, really need to understand how this is a Manny Diaz team that was 7-5 last season.
Yeah.
While it wasn't the best team, you still had a verifiably much more talented roster than a majority of your opponents heading into this season. And then you go 5-7. Now, I will say, culturally, I think Mario's doing the right thing. I know he got rid of the chains and everything else. To me, I'm indifferent with that. You know, like let the kids have fun, but also you need to earn kind of having the right to have a little bit of fun when it comes to basically at your place of work. Yeah. So I think Mario, as a recruiter, he's elite. They have a top 10 team and everything else overall, but we really need to see basically him to do changes on the staff because we saw a decline of a Tyler Van Dyke. We saw basically the running game. Jalen Knighton is gone. Henry Parrish, while he was successful, didn't see much with that. Wide receivers, you didn't really have the true number one guy. I know Xavier Shepo was hurt for a majority of the year. He's someone that he's a name to watch out for, but overall to me, this was a team that was slated to win the Coastal. And you won 5 games. You lost to Middle Tennessee. You got blown out at home by your rival by 42 plus points. Mario probably he can tell you the same thing, that this team was very, very fell short of expectations, and that's something that to me is the most shocking because even I, as much as of a Miami hater than I am, didn't expect them to go kind of this route this season. It's great, but
didn't expect you to stink this bad. I just my biggest surprise, honestly, was the whole Coastal. Like, I just did not expect Carolina to win it for sure. I damn sure didn't expect everyone to be so bad. I mean, Duke came in second. Like, I just wasn't expecting this season for the Coastal to go this horribly. I thought it was going to be like an elevated, we're all battling for the end. It was like one more time for the Coastal. We're going to go out in style. And it was just very lackluster. But also the Atlantic wasn't great either, if I'm being honest.
I mean, listen, when NC State lost Evan Leary, that was a rough time there. And then also with Louisville, basically, we're really good. And then we're not really good. We're really good. Scott Southard is leaving the dead of night, basically, going out cheating. And then you have Wake Forest, where they were extremely good. And then I just don't know what happened. Actually, that might be my most shocking. The way Wake Forest actually collapsed down the stretch, because that was just
down their leg. Yeah.
Man, they did a lot more than piss down their leg. That was just, that was graphic. And I felt bad. I was like, this isn't the same fun offense that we
fight back.
Stand up. But yeah, it's just that's my, there you go. That's my most shocking. The Wake Forest collapse on the stretch. There we go.
All right, last one. Biggest surprise going into 2023. Who should we be like, all right, wait a minute now, they might be coming bigger than you think?
So this is really hard for me because I do think I pick one of the Florida teams. I might cheat and pick both, like Alex Dono. I'll start with Miami, and the reason I say this is because I can't expect them to be this bad once again, and also I do believe I like Mark Cristobal a lot. I'm one of the few Florida State probably people that will tell you that, and I'm not saying that because we beat his ass. I'm mainly saying that because I really, really do think that he is a really good recruiter. I do think his kids respond. You look at his team over at Oregon. I know people don't like saying that, but he did recruit primarily the majority of those kids at Oregon. He won the Pac-12 twice. The new recruiting class they're bringing in is going to be elite. I do trust him to make kind of the changes to staff. I don't think Josh Gass will be there next season. So you bring in an OC who's a little more friendly. I think he might need to check his ego at the door, because one thing about his head coaches, the reason they're in the position that they are in is because their egos are large and they're good at what they do, and they know what they're good at what they do. It's what makes them get paid good and to play good. So to me, he needs to look himself with that. And then Florida State too. I think Florida State has a real chance next season to probably win 10 or 11 games with Jordan Travis. I heard yesterday with the Heisman campaign already starting this next season, but also bringing the band back together. We have some transferable kids coming in that I've been hearing that I'm very excited about. And this is going to
Mhm.
be, this gives me a lot of the 2012 vibes where we played NIU in the Orange Bowl and then 2013 next year. I mean, that was 10 years ago for next season. So
Mhm.
maybe, hey, every single decade we're good. I'll take that.
No doubt about it. All right, Florida team, POP, hold it down. Y'all gonna have to show us something because apparently the rest of the ACC is just gonna be mediocre. But who knows? All I'm saying that to say is we got to transition into basketball, and what a better time to talk about Florida State basketball. Speaking of mediocrity,
Woo!
there's a lot of good things happening on the men's basketball front this Saturday. If you guys have not checked out the games, we're gonna go through them just a bit and talk a little bit about some money because at the end of the day, who do you put your money on this early in December? It's really a toss up, but we can definitely roll through these. Florida State and Louisville open up our weekend. They play at 1 p.m. And oh my Lord, on ACC Network, I'm just going to be tuning in to see, like, is there improvement? Who wants it better? Like, don't give the game away. Hopefully it doesn't come down to the guys in blouses. Like, I want to see a good game. Is that what we're going to get out of Florida State Louisville? I don't know.
I
It's
hope
hard to
so, man.
tell.
I really hope so, man. So, folks, for those of you that don't know, BetOnline does not have their lines out because it's the day before. But
Mhm.
I recommend going over to Bart Torvik. That's one of the more advanced measures. Personally, what I use for gambling because I can't watch every single basketball game, and also Dave's the
Mhm.
one that kind of put me on that. So, shout out to my co-host Dave. Right
Yeah.
now, Florida State is projected to win this game by around 8 points. And to me, if you see the line around 5 or 6, take Louisville to cover that. I don't think Louisville's going to win this game, but I'll be damned if Louisville comes into the Tuck and wins that game because Chris Mack is gone. I mean, Chris
Yeah.
Mack Ham was that man's daddy for a very long time. This is a new head coach, but Louisville, they're still looking for that first win. There's kind of a pseudo kind of bad blood between the two programs for over the past decade, ever since
Mhm.
Ham's been there. So take Louisville to cover this game, but take Florida State's going to win this game outright.
And I think that Florida State was actually in that game against Virginia, so they've had like moments and flashes where you say, okay, like pieces are there. They just haven't really, besides the one game, been able to put it together. So maybe this is the one where they'll start this nice little streak going. Who
Yeah, but
knows?
we lost Cameron Fletcher for the rest of the year, another player. So we're
Doesn't
down to
help.
we're down, I think, like 7 players in the walk-ons, and we used to tweet out the whites of whites kind of gif when we could bring in the Green Vipers, aka the bench players. We can't do that anymore, and it makes me pretty sad.
Very sad. All right, two classic teams here. Georgetown faces off against Syracuse as well on ABC at 1 p.m. And Syracuse, definitely an up and down team. They definitely have lost some head scratchers. They've won some ones where you're like, all right, Syracuse, what we got going on here? But when it's all said and done, I just feel like we're on the Boeheim retirement clock. That's all I want to say about
Yeah,
this
so
team.
right now Bartovik has is a Syracuse is it Georgetown? Yeah, it's
Georgetown.
also 8-point game. Take Syracuse here with Jim Boeheim with that. I really don't think this isn't the Georgetown that you kind of remember growing up. This isn't.
Mhm.
I think Patrick Ewing, he's not the coach. He's still not the coach there, correct? Or he's still his coach
I
there?
believe he's still coach there.
He's still the coach there? Okay.
Mhm.
If this isn't the Georgetown you kind of remember like I grew up watching or you grew up watching, take Syracuse with this overall. So
Well, couldn't have said it better. NC State faces off against Miami, an NC State team that is surprisingly 8-2, and Miami 9-1, having a good start to the season. Two teams that certainly have had polarizing years last season, where Miami had that hell of a run in the NCAA tournament. NC State couldn't even get there, but now we're finding that they are putting some pieces together and getting some good wins. They know that Keats has to get those wins after the contract extension and all the things. But I'm just sitting here saying on ACC Network Extra at 2 p.m., do we go with the Hurricanes or the Wolfpack?
So I like Miami in this. I was kind of a believer in Miami last season. I was a big Isaiah Wong kind of fan. And
Mm-hmm.
then now Bartovik kind of agrees with me. They're at a 4-point kind of differential here as well. With NC State, though, I didn't expect them to come off this kind of start. So that's actually probably kind of big for them. And overall, to me, I think Miami will win this out. I think they're the better team. I think they're the better coach team. Jim Larrañaga, I think, is one of the more unsung or underrated coaches in the ACC. So give me I already talked to Matt Smack about y'all earlier today, but for basketball, it's a different story. I think I like where your program's heading, the players that you have. So I'll give Miami in this one.
Yeah, we have the holiday hoops giving between LSU and Wake Forest. Will start at 2 p.m. on ESPNU. Wake Forest, a team that certainly has some goodness about them. Forbes is keeping them in the right direction in terms of being a solid team. They'll face off against a 7-1 LSU program. This is, potential of what we'll see about the ACC SEC challenge that we have about us these days. But when you talk about Wake Forest, are they going to be able to pull off this win against a pretty good ACC LSU program?
So actually, LSU and Wake Forest kind of neck and neck per like overall team rankings. Right now, LSU is ranked at number 68. Wake Forest is number 71. So this is basically kind of more of a toss-up game. And you were asking last week, like basically, what would the SEC ACC kind of challenge kind of feel like, kind of bring the table? I mean, we're going to get that answer on Saturday. And when it comes to LSU Wake Forest is a team that's very well coached. I know that Alonzo Williams is no longer there anymore, but they're still kind of continuing where they left off from last season and being a competitive and being a consistently strong team on both ends of the floor. So to me, I will take LSU in this one because LSU, as you're saying, I think they do have a little more star power for that squad. So give me LSU, but don't be surprised if you see the line open up tomorrow morning. Wake Forest +2, maybe +3. If it goes up to that, maybe sprinkle a little bit on Demon Dinkins.
Loyola, Chicago, and Clemson are also participating in the Hoops Giving. And quiet as it's kept, you'll see Sacred Heart and Pitt facing off. Villanova and Boston College will be down there for the Never Forget Tribute Classic. So if you want to check out that game. And then Maryland Eastern and Duke will face off at 5:30 on 5:30 on ACC Network. And Duke, quite as it's kept, been a top 15 team that nobody's really like giving a lot of noise to. And I think it's because the team that I want to talk about next, Georgia Tech and North Carolina's doing so bad that Duke's, been able to fly under the radar with it, whatever positive or minuses it has going on for them. But for North Carolina, is this like, can we get one game? Are we going to be on the streak? How long can we go before we end this losing streak?
I mean, what's that saying from like Rocky or whatever? Like, it doesn't matter how hard you get hit, it's not how hard you get hit, get up and keep on going.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting to the point now where you just need to win one game.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're given a better opportunity to do that against Georgia Tech. Now, if you find a way, I think when you lose a game, you get to find a way to lose to the Georgia Tech team. It's like when you play Florida State, you find a way to lose to the Florida State team. I mean, it's getting pretty bad right now because right now it's the team. It just seems like they're not responding. They're not gelling. All the goodwill from last season is utterly gone. You can't rest your laurels with that whatsoever. So to me, with this one, I think they'll win this game, but take Georgia Tech to cover because until they prove otherwise, you're going to have to like just fade them until you're proven wrong.
These are definitely scary hours for North Carolina indeed. Well, we are going to wrap up the show here, but would love for you guys to give us some comments about your favorite basketball games heading into the weekend. More importantly, where are you putting your money down? So for Drizzy, Drake, and Candace Cooper, we hope you guys have a great and safe weekend. We know that all the things when it comes to just being safe out here in these streets, these winter weather streets. Make sure you take care of yourselves. Until next time, we'll see you on Monday with Kid and Gibbs, the Locked On Wolfpack.